Qatar. I'm active currently in the coalition against the war on Gaza, which is made out of tens of different small organizations and human rights groups. And currently we're, working against the war, the siege. I think the war, in a way, is a term that is problematic because there's not much of a war. It's much more one-sided attacks of Israel on Gaza, but that's what we do. Already in the very first day of the attacks on Saturday, once we heard what had happened, we organized the first demonstrations. There were 2 or 3 demonstrations already the first day with thousands of people who came. And ever since, there have been between 2 and 5 demonstrations every day throughout the country in student groups and Palestinian villages, and in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem and opposite government buildings and so on all the time. We are also planning a major demonstration on Saturday that is going to be joint for all the groups, all the organizations countrywide, and we expect at least 5,000 people there.
Here in Germany, people have the impression by what the German media is saying, that there's no voices in Israel against the war.
That's a message that we also get in the media here. First of all, I think it's very important to remember that 1/5 of Israeli citizens are Palestinians. So when you say Israelis, then we do have 1/5 of the population that are Palestinians, and they also go to demonstrations all the time in all their cities and villages. Many of the demonstrations are joint with Jews as well. Showing the Palestinian Israelis demonstrating, only the Arabs demonstrating, and saying the Arabs that are citizens, they are traitors, they're not really Israelis, they support our enemies in Gaza. And nobody talks about the fact that there are thousands of Jewish Israelis also demonstrating, also taking part in these same protests and having their own protests and so on. So it's very difficult to make this message go through the media here as well as abroad.
And we've heard here about a petition happening even in the city of Sderot against the attacks on Gaza.
There is a petition, and there are people in Sderot and all around Gaza. There are also people that are supportive of the struggle against the war, that think that it is a bad idea. We all agree that what is happening and what has been happening in Sderot and the south of Israel generally is bad. Nobody wants to see Qassam, and of course not the people who live there. But the problem is that Israel goes on with the siege and goes on with this war, which just creates more violence and more suffering for Israelis as well. Of course, there's nothing to compare, and the suffering on the Palestinians is much, much greater. But nonetheless, we cannot ignore the fact that there is great suffering here in Israel, and we and many people down south as well see this. See that this must end only through negotiations and ceasefire and not through this war.
Do you personally think that there is a Palestinian partner and that there is a possibility to agree on a ceasefire with Hamas?
Definitely, yes. Hamas has been saying so for a very long time, not just about ceasefire. I'm not a great supporter of Hamas, of course not, but Hamas too is saying, and has been saying for a long time, that they want a ceasefire and a peace agreement that would be in effect for 20 or 30 years. And after that, we can go on and see where we can move on to. So there are people on the other side who want to work with us. Of course, not just Hamas. There are people that are closer to us, many different partners, and we do believe that it's a possibility.
But Haggai, wasn't it the Hamas that broke the ceasefire?
Actually, no. I'm afraid that many people in Israel and abroad seem to have a short memory about these things. Actually, it was already Israel that in November broke the ceasefire. First of all, not many people remember that the siege had been going on throughout the time of the ceasefire, and even though no rockets were fired against Israel for months, for very long months, Israel kept on with the siege. But even on top of that, of the ongoing siege that prohibited and prohibits all incoming and outgoing merchandise and so on, Israel also attacked Gaza and sent forces in and had a military operation that killed 3 people already in the beginning of November during the ceasefire. And this was not something that Hamas even commented on. So that happened already in November. And indeed, Hamas now did break the ceasefire, but for the second time, after Israel broke it for the first time. And this too also, while still saying that it wants to go back to a ceasefire under conditions that would allow people to breathe, to end the siege or to at least lighten the siege partly.
Are you also joining the demonstrations within the Palestinian territories in the West Bank, in the villages of Bil'in and Yalin, for example?
Yes, of course. We go there all the time. We can see the violence that is usually used against these villages demonstrating has risen significantly since this last operation. In Yalin, 2 young people have been shot dead by the army in one of these demonstrations, and of course we go there as well. This is a struggle that we all take part in.
Is there something that you would really like to say to people here in Europe about the situation?
I think it's very important for people in Europe to understand that many Israelis, again, as I said before, including many people that live in the south of Israel and suffer from the constant shooting, that there are these people, we are here and we resist the war, and we terribly need outside support. We terribly need people to pressure European countries, for example, to stop this automatic support of Israel, to offer alternatives, to pressure Israel to stop the massacre in Gaza, to force Israel to end the siege on Gaza and the occupation in general, and leave the occupied territories. This is something that we really, really need outside help for, because it's very hard to get through here just by ourselves.